My guest today is Shebra Hackett. Among many things that she's involved in, Shebra owns an Allstate Insurance Agency in Grand Prairie, and we talked today about how she got into the insurance industry and then came to own her own office. We discussed the great things that come from owning your own business and some of the challenges that come from balancing family and community priorities with running a successful business. Shebra is also involved in several local community advocacy and networking groups, such as the Soroptimist International of Grand Prairie and the Grand Prairie Metro Rotary Club, where today she'll be installed as the 2021-2022 president. Shebra is always so delightful to talk to, and I'm so glad to have had her on for her to share some of her experiences as a business owner, a mom, and a volunteer in her community. And now, here's Shebra. Hi, Shebra. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk, because we had tried to do this like a while back, and then everything happened.
We did. I remember you reached out to me and asked me, I think when you first started, and then stuff happened. I think that was prior to the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, it might have actually been, and and then the pandemic hit, and it was just kind of interesting. But I have you've been on my list for a while, and so I'm just so glad. But so you and I had actually met each other through Rotary, which we did on Tuesdays, and so that's how you and I got to know each other. But I don't know much about your life prior to being an insurance agent and now an owner of an insurance agency. So tell everybody well, first of all, did you grow up in Grand Prairie?
No, I did not grow up in Grand Prairie. I grew up in Dallas, as a matter of fact. I grew up in the heart of Oak Cliff, Texas.
Wow.
And my grandparents lived right off of downtown in a neighborhood called Arlington Park, right behind St. Paul Hospital. The neighborhood is still there. It was one of the first neighborhoods in the Dallas city limits where Black people bought houses. So my grandparents were one of the first homeowners in Dallas proper, in that neighborhood that was pretty much the majority Black people.
Wow. So what year was that they bought a house?
I want to say they bought their house in the 50s. I want to say is when they bought their house.
Wow.
But they were very proud homeowners. I grew up spending most of the week with my mom, but all of the weekends and all of the summers with my grandma and my granddad at their house. The yard was immaculate. They took care of the house. The furniture, we couldn't even play in the living room. She almost had plastic on the stuff, and it was, they took pride in it because, they really felt like they had achieved by being able to own the home. So that's the environment that I grew up in. Now it's something totally different because the people that own those homes have either they're too old and they've passed away, and their children and their grandchildren are there, or it's rental property and it's not the same, and it's not treated the same anymore. But that's the environment in which I grew up in. So did both of your grandparents work? Were they, and what did they do for a living? Well, my grandmother worked until she hurt herself on a job, and then she became disabled. So she was 100% disabled. But my granddad worked until he decided he wanted to retire. He was a truck mechanic on the 18-wheelers. And then he retired and he opened his own shop. And I believe that's where I got my entrepreneurial spirit from, because he always believed, you can have whatever life you want to have if you just have to make it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you plan and you do what you need to do, then you can do that. So when my mom got married, right out of high school to my dad, he gave them money to buy the down payment for their house. He was like, I don't want you in an apartment. I want you to have a house. Mm-hmm. So they got a house out in Plano, Texas.
Wow.
Where there was nothing. It looked like we were going to the country. There was nothing out there, literally. When I was little, I would run around and play. I was, but my parents got divorced. And so once my parents got divorced, my granddad said, okay, I still don't want you in an apartment. You need to raise my grandbabies in a house. So he bought a house and had her to pay him back for it, but it was this huge lot that split in half. So when he retired, he took the back half and built his garage.
Oh.
And so that's where he worked every day. When we came home from school, wow. He was back there. He always, day in, day out, that's what he would do.
Wow.
And my mom was a teacher, and my dad was in and out. He took care of me when we were little, monetarily, but he really wasn't there in person. So I didn't really grow up with my dad in the house. So I watched my mom struggle to take care of all three girls and make sure we had what we needed. And that's where my drive and perseverance comes from, my grandparents and my mom.
3 girls.
Yes.
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of 3 girls too. My poor football coach of a dad just was like, oh my gosh, y'all just so different than boys. Like we would fight and be so loud. He's like, and my mom my parents were both educators. So your mom, what grade did she teach?
Kindergarten.
Oh my. So she had a lot of patience.
She had patience for the students. She didn't have patience for us.
I know exactly how you feel.
When we got home, the rule of thumb was we walked through the door, you cannot call her name or approach her for the first 30 minutes about anything unless you were dying.
Sounds about right.
That's about right. After that 30 minutes was up, she would come out of her room and she would start getting dinner together. We'd talk to her about our day or whatever. She was good. But if you encroached on that 30 minutes, you paid the price.
So how did you end up in Grand Prairie and when did you get here?
I came to Grand Prairie because I got married. I went to University of Texas at Austin after graduating from Skyline High School. And when I met my now ex-husband there. And when we came out of school, we were looking for a place to live. We didn't really know where we wanted to live. We, of course, didn't have any kids yet, but my mindset was, let me figure out where we want to raise kids. And that's, of course, where we want to try to look to live.
And what'd you get your degree?
Well, we both got... Huh?
I said, before you go on, what did you get your degree in when you graduated?
Finance.
Finance.
I originally went for architectural engineering is what I went for, because that's the cluster that I was in at Skyline High School.
Oh.
But it just so happened the bubble burst my sophomore year at UT and the market just dried up.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw people when I was a sophomore, students that were graduating as seniors and not able to find jobs.
Mm.
So that made me have to try to diversify and say, okay, I don't want to be in that particular situation. So let me see what do I have the most credits in so that I can graduate. And it was either math or finance. So I did majored in finance and minored in that.
Oh, cool. So anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So you were looking for a place to buy a house.
We were looking for a place to buy a house. But we both got jobs in Irving when we graduated. I graduated first, and then he graduated the semester after me. And I came to work with Allstate because my grandmother's best friend was a claims adjuster and had been a claims adjuster for 30 years for Allstate. And she told me that I needed to apply. I needed to make sure I could type without looking at my hands, and that I needed to apply because Allstate was a good company. So that's what I did. And I've been here ever since.
So did you get your license, or did you just like work in an office to start off with?
Well, when I first started, like I said, when I graduated with the finance. So I got hired on in the controller department for finance with Allstate.
Gotcha.
And so, but it was in Irving. So that's how we ended up finding an apartment in Irving while we looked for a house. And so I was in the controller department for 11 years.
Mm.
And I made it all the way up to a finance manager role. And then my world kind of fell apart and I went through divorce.
Mm.
And I, as when you go through divorce, you make all of these evaluations about yourself and your future and what you want to do. And I wanted to advance. Yeah.
It's not the easiest
I wanted
time.
to advance. Not at all. Not at all. But plus I had 2 little babies. My babies were 3 and 2 at the time. And I wanted to advance, but the only way to advance at that time would have been for me to move to Northbrook, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, which is where Allstate's home office is, and do a temporary assignment for 6 months. And I was like, I can't take my babies to Chicago for 6 months by myself. What? That wasn't feasible. So he said, well, why don't you be an agent? And I thought, I don't want to sell. I'm not a salesperson. I don't know how to sell stuff. No. So I kept saying no, and he kept saying you should. And finally, I actually thought about it. And so I took the track to be an agency manager. And because I didn't have any sales experience, they made me go work in an agent's office for 6 months. The agent office that they put me in was in Grand Prairie. Oh. And that was Marilyn's husband, Bill Goncioric.
Okay. I did not realize that. That's so interesting.
Yes. So I worked for Bill in his office for 6 months to gain my sales experience in order to become a sales manager. But I was knocking the ball out of the park. I was blowing away my numbers. And he was like, why do you want to be an agency manager? Why don't you just be an agent? I said, I don't know. And he said, would you rather manage your own office, hire your own staff, do what you want to do, or manage 30 people that act, think, and look like you? I said, I think I'd rather have my own office and hire my own staff and do what I want to do.
Right.
He said, I think you would too. So you need to be an agent. So that's how I got to Grand Prairie. That's how I became an agent because I was going to be an agency manager, a sales manager. But I decided to do that and I have never looked back. It was the best decision I ever made. It gave me the freedom to go to all of my kids' events at school, all of the theater performances, all of the volleyball games, all of the PTA, this and that. I was able to do all of that because I could set my own schedule. And still, because that was extremely important to me. I wanted to be at everything that I could possibly be in or attend. Because that's what my mom did with me. She was at everything. Not to mention we was in the same school most of the time, but that's the way I grew up. And so that's what I wanted to provide for my kids. So that was my driving force for becoming an agent.
I'll tell you right now, being a real estate agent, that's exactly, there have been so many times that I've said, maybe I should just go get a job where I get, like a regular salary or, I have a little bit more, stability with my income. And every time I think that, I think, no, because I've been doing this for 8 years, and to give up that ability to see my daughter, that's exactly what it is. I take her to school every day. I pick her up from school every day. And that's not to say that, there's been times that I have worked full time, with hours and set hours, and she's had to go to daycare. I mean, I've never been home, but it's definitely a motivation to keep you in something like working for yourself, because that's not everybody has that motivation or understands their why when it comes to working for yourself. And so, and I don't know about you, but maybe you could tell me a little bit, for maybe anybody that's listening that's considering leaving a job and maybe starting your own, endeavor. It took a little bit of time for me to get used to the autonomy of actually working for myself and knowing that I had control over myself. So was that kind of a little difficult for you to get used to?
For me, no. I'm going to tell you why. Because when I worked at Allstate Corporate, it was stressful to me. I don't like traffic. And we had to get up extra early, had to get the kids ready. I had to drop them off extra early, get them to school, drive to Irving, and then fight through the traffic or whatever, and then get off work, try to fly home so that I can get them picked up on time, or get my mom to pick them up. Then there's the stress, and I gotta, try to figure out how to make time for homework, and then we gotta cook dinner, and then at some point in time, we gotta try to spend some quality time before it's bedtime, and once I walked away from that, and I could set my own schedule, and I could get up and take my babies to school in time so that they were actually getting in class when it was time and not having to sit outside and wait. And I could pick them up and not have to do after school care and all that. There was no way in the world I was going back.
You're like,
that was for me. So me, adjustment time, no, I would say after I did it, I didn't have that issue. Now, my concern about stepping out on faith, was not having the consistent paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my biggest fears, because I took it up, even though their dad was still paying child support and all of that. To me, that's not permanent money. I'm never sure that I'm going to get that. So I had to make sure that there was a way for me to provide for my babies. And so from stepping out on faith, that was a huge faith step for me to begin it. But because my boss at the time believed in me and had seen everything I've gone through, he helped me to work it out so that I didn't miss a paycheck. So when I walked away from Allstate corporate and became an agent, Allstate still paid me for 3 months.
Oh,
because because I had enough time built up, and I had back pay, and I had other severance pay and stuff like that I took when I left. So he structured it so that I could get paid for the next 3 months, my regular pay. And because when you start an agency, commissions come in on a month lag. So I would have had to go for 2 whole months without pay.
Wow.
If we had not been able to work that out. So once he was able to get rid of that fear and ease that was it for me. It was already all green lights at that point. I was ready to go.
I started doing I was an agent for several years before I ended up getting a divorce. So I had the kind of the stability of my spouse's income, but it would have been a lot different if I was divorced at the time and made that decision to start doing something like that. It would have been harder, but so I guess when you became a new business owner, and I'm all about people starting something that just belongs to you, even if it's just a side, something that you can do that gives you another stream of income, that, you have control over that money a little bit more, especially in, having gone through the pandemic, just having the ability to be able to think about that from a independent standpoint of, I can make my money. I have control over how much money that I can make, instead of maybe having that salary cut, so I'm always a big proponent of it. What was something that was the most difficult for you when it came to like starting a new business? Because insurance agents are a little bit different, because don't you have to have an office, so you have to have some overhead and things, correct? So
things are a little different now due to the pandemic. They greatly vary the types of agents that are available. But when I started, no, there were no options. You had to open a storefront. You have to have staff. And you have to set up your pay structure. You have to have licenses. I had to get my licenses and maintain. There's an annual fee to maintain them, that type of thing. So yeah, there are certain things you have to do in order to be an agent. The biggest hurdle by far is hiring people, keeping good, motivated, honest, trustworthy, producing people. That is the biggest challenge, and that will never go away. You fight that challenge over and over and over again. I want to say 2 years ago, I had a complete staff change, a complete overhaul. I started with me and my sister. She came in to help me answer the phones because I had no staff. I got rid of everybody because it had just gotten to that point. So then you got to rebuild and you got to get it back together. And it's like then you have to find people that can get along with each other and work together. Because if you put the one bad person in the mix of the team, it blows the whole team up.
Mm-hmm.
So
especially in a small office like that.
Yes, and there's only 4 of us here, and there's only 4. I've also tried to hire guys. I've had 2 guys, but guys don't do. It doesn't work very well for me, I'll say.
Yeah. You're so right. Like whenever I was in the restaurant industry, I was a service manager at Texas Roadhouse for a long, long time. And, it was just,
oh, really?
Yeah. And I learned a lot about hiring and then looking at people's work ethic, because when you have especially when you're waiting tables, you have such a mix. There's people that are trying to provide for their families. There's other kids that are in college. There's other kids that might not have even graduated high school yet and still live with mom and dad. So everybody has their own, reasons for working and their own amount of money in their mind that they think is okay. So once they get there, they don't want to do anything more. And then there's other people that I would find would work constantly and pick up tables all the time because they just wanted to make as much money as they possibly could. So watching people and their, just their work ethic and their motivations, and it's really hard. And when you're the one that's in charge of that and you need to get them to understand that they need to be producing when they're not really motivated, it's a lot harder than people think that it is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I had to learn that. I took a leadership class a long time ago, and I really had to go find my book and pull it out and look at it, because when you talk about these different personality types and how to motivate them and how to get the best out of them, it was very useful to me to recognize, the different people that you're dealing with, the different approaches to take, because everybody's motivated by different things. You just have to figure out what motivates the person.
That's exactly right. And it's so funny it's not funny at all, but it's interesting looking around right now and seeing the labor shortages, and the people all these restaurants, especially are having so many problems finding workers.
Yeah.
And, I think
they can make more money staying at home.
That's exactly right. And I made a post the other day and I said, if you see anybody that's in here that's not dependent on their parents, they're no longer on their IRS taxes, and they're working and they're waiting tables or they're doing all these things, they're there because they're choosing to be. And those are really hard workers that want to come in and be productive, and give them a thumbs up, give them an extra tip or whatever, because that says a lot. I feel like that's that's integrity, and that's just wanting to work hard just because you want to work hard. And I feel like when you're a business owner, there's a certain level of that you really have to have if you're going to be doing it for yourself. Because that mediocrity can keep you from really pushing yourself to do new things. And but insurance is one of those. And if anybody's interested in being an insurance agent, insurance is one of those where it's residual, right? Like once you sign it up, then it's you have recurring customers. And so you're not only trying to sell, but you're also trying to keep. And
correct. We have what's called retention. And we are responsible for maintaining a certain retention level based upon our current book of business. So yes, we can't but we also have a growth goal. So you have to sell new business too. You can't just sit back and nurture the old ones and don't sell any new. And you can't just focus on the new or the old. You got to be able to do both.
Yeah, it takes a lot. That's for sure. And so your kids are how old now? Are they still in school or have they graduated?
Yes, I have a this year is almost over. So I have a freshman and a sophomore in college.
Oh, in college. So they've graduated high school now.
Yes. So, I'm broke. I'm very broke. Yes.
Well, that explains a lot about how you are able to do some of the other extra things that you do, because your kids aren't little anymore. And and one of the reasons that you and I came to know each other is because, like I said, a Rotary, and that is a service organization that requires some extra time, but you're also a part of Soroptimist. And so maybe talk a little bit about why you find service to be important and kind of what those two groups do. And if there's anything else that you're doing also.
Well, service, giving back is very important to me because I wouldn't be where I am if someone didn't give back to me. There was an organization that one of my grandmother's neighbors started, and she used to come pick me up on the weekends, on Saturdays, and take me to her meetings. And they learned life skills. They learned, self-esteem, self-worth. Typing, how to dress for an interview. How to back then it was word processing and fax machines and all that kind of stuff. Teaching you how to use all that kind of stuff. So that was crucial to me because somebody poured into me. So it's important to me to then return the favor. So in any organization that I'm a part of, I'm always looking for the youth component. How can I help the kid? What are we doing to pour back into the children? And in any shape, form, or fashion. So when when my kids were little, my time was limited, as you know. Mm-hmm. So I was more involved in whatever they were involved in. So if with theater, I was on the booster club for theater. I was on the volleyball booster club when my daughter was on the volleyball team. I became the president of the booster club, the PTA, all that kind of stuff. So, but then once they got out of school and went to college, then that freed me to be, I was still at the time heavily involved in helping us help her in Rotary, but not to the capacity that I would have liked to be because I didn't have a lot of extra time. Mm-hmm. But now that I do, it's very important to me to keep giving back and to reach back and pull someone else up because somebody pulled me up. And I'm involved in helping us help her first and foremost. I sit on the board. It's an organization that helps young girls, kind of similar to the organization that I was involved in when I was younger. That's why I'm so attracted to helping us help her, because it's the same mantra, the same vision, the same mission, the same age group of girls, 13 to 18, whole 9 yards.
Say that again, the name of it?
Helping Us Help Her.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that organization.
They go by her.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I sat on the commission, Housing and Community Improvement Commission, I think, because it's a fairly new organization in terms of it has
been around 10 years.
Oh, it's been around 10 years. Well, 10 years, yeah. I think that she came, maybe it was just new that she had tried to come and sit before the board to get maybe some additional funding. And I hadn't got a chance to hear about that. But it sounds, when you were talking and saying what you had done as a kid, it sounded exactly like that. And yeah, that's a really cool organization.
Yeah, so it is. So that, like I said, that's what helps me. And my daughter went through it all the way up to 8. She still is a part of it now. They then, once they turn 18, they move to the mentorship side, and they help the other young girls that are coming through the program. So I love it. I will be a part of it for as long as it allows. I also then Marilyn invited me to Rotary, and so she kept asking. You need to come to Rotary. You need to come to Rotary. I was like, Marilyn, I don't have time to come to Rotary. She said, yes, you do. So I finally went to a Rotary meeting, and when I went to the meeting, I mean, it's just infectious. The love and the camaraderie and the service above self mindset and attitude just drew me in. I was gone, hook, line, and sinker. So that's why I'm a part of Rotary as I am now, and I'll be the upcoming president for the Grand Prairie Metro. So I'm pray for me.
Well, I'll be coming to visit again, I think. So Sandy has been on me. Sandy Morrison has been on me.
I know, Sandy.
You've got to come back. You've got to come back.
Membership chair. Yes, go get them. Yes. But along with helping us help her in Rotary, the next thing that I devote a whole lot of my time to is Soroptimist. And I got involved with Soroptimist because they recognized Dandrian Gray, who was the founder of Helping Us Help Her, for a Women in History Award. And they couldn't get a hold of her, so they called me. So when because I'm the finance director, I'm on the board. So they called me and told me that they were trying to get a hold of her. And we went to this whole the gala and everything, and they gave her this award. And I was like, this program, this organization sounds pretty good. What is this? I've never heard of this. I've been in Grand Prairie 10 years. What's going on? And so once I got to looking into it, Soroptimist is a hidden gem within Grand Prairie. It's not just in Grand Prairie. It's an international organization of women helping women and young girls. Is basically what it is. And this year I am the sitting president. So I go from being president of Soroptimist. Now I'm gonna, starting in July, I will end my presidency with Soroptimist, and I'll pick up one for Rotary.
So the moral of your life is, or the mission of your life is, don't just do it all the way. I'm going to just go all out and be on boards and yeah.
Well, I told them, I said, as long as my kids were in school and I had major roles in the booster clubs, like I can't take on a leadership role. I can't. And I read that excuse I wrote that excuse as long as I could possibly write it. But as soon as I said they graduated, oh my God, they pounced. So, but it is great. I love Soroptimist. You know, they pour back into the community. They do a lot behind the scenes that people don't know about. But we have a program for Girl of the Month that we were doing with GPISD, where the counselors choose the girls and send them over, and we recognize them and we love on them, and we have a little brunch for them, and it's just a place for them to shine. Let them know that we appreciate their work. And we love them, and we're going to keep up with them, and it goes all the way through. We also do an all-A awards program through GPISD. We sponsor it at South Grand Prairie High School, but if the student maintains A's all the way from, I think, the 7th grade all the way through, they matriculate through the program. They get a scholarship, they get plaques, and they come to the awards program, and it's packed every single year. It's standing room only at the theater at South Grand Prairie when we have this program. Now, the last couple of years, due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to have an in-person event, but it's every year the number of seniors that we recognize just grows and grows and grows. These kids are amazing. They're doing wonderful things, and we like to recognize them. But Soroptimist does a lot within the community to it's for the advancement of women and girls. So we also have we're introducing a Women Helping Women grant available to entrepreneurs within in the Metroplex, and you can apply for it. Anybody can apply for it. We can also nominate people for it, but it comes along with a membership for a year into the club and a monetary donation to help you with your business venture. Wow. And we also offer scholarships to women that are called Live Your Dream Scholarship, and the women that are heads of household that are trying to finish their schooling, and they apply, and they can get money at our local level, they can get money at the district level, and if they keep on going and keep winning, they can win all the way up to national.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. You know, like, and I want to say, and I feel like Soroptimist, if I'm not mistaken, was started by Ruthie Jackson, didn't she? Wasn't she one of the?
She was one of the founders, yes.
Yes, because there was an Optimist Club, which is the men's group, and I seem to remember when I came I think I came and presented one time at the Soroptimist Club, and I saw all those pictures all over everything, and of course there's Ruthie Jackson, you know, everywhere, and you know, it's so interesting. And you being somebody that's, you know, a Grand Prairie transplant that maybe didn't grow up here, you know, Ruthie was just, I'm sure you know her, you know, Miss Ruthie, but she was such a tremendous, she pushed for so many things. If there's things that exist in Grand Prairie, chances are she had something to do with it starting, if it's been here for a long time. And she's actually one of the people that I've thought about as I've grown up in this town, and then I became, you know, a business owner, and I started getting involved with things. And now that I have this podcast, you know, you talk about mentorship, and I'll tell you that if there's anybody that epitomizes mentorship, it was Miss Ruthie. And she was so very passionate about training other people and to pour into other people to do stuff for your community. And it's a real lesson in civics that we just don't get anymore. And these kinds of groups just provide those kinds of lessons in civics and how to be a good citizen and how to pour back into your community. And, you know, it's really important to me, as it is you, to make sure that we find opportunities to teach the young generation how to grow up to be the next leaders, because this Grand Prairie wouldn't be what it was if we didn't have that. You see it all around you. You know, you were talking about Maryland. I think about Greg Geisner, who is, you know, the son of Angela Geisner, and he's now in city council because Jim Swafford made sure that he got trained, and, you know, Ron Jensen that was trained, all these things. And it's like, if we don't have people of our generation that are teaching these young people how to do it, they're not going to know how, and they're not going to have the direction about where to go to become good, involved citizens. So I feel like that is just so very important. I'm sure you agree.
Yes, definitely.
Do you find that these kids, I feel like maybe a misconception of, we all have the misconception of the next generation, like, oh, they just don't care. We care more than they ever will. But I don't think that that's true about this generation. I think this generation coming up really wants to be involved. It seems like that.
Yes. As long as we keep setting good examples and making opportunities for them to make a mark, I think they are going to far outshine anything that we have attempted to accomplish.
Oh, I agree.
They have so many more tools. They are so much. They can run circles around you technologically. They can do it's great. It's awesome. Now the challenge is, from what I have seen in dealing with our youth, and I've missed a part. I'm also extremely involved in my church. So I'm a youth director at my church, at Sunset Baptist Church.
Of course you are.
But from what I see with my kids at the church, and dealing with helping us help her and Soroptimist, we have to urge the social piece of it. Sometimes I see that they're missing the social piece of it. That, you know, we used to go outside for hours upon hours at a time and just play with each other and make up in our own minds, our own make-believe worlds, and entertain ourselves and be perfectly fine with that. Mm-hmm. And come back in the house when the streetlights came on. This generation doesn't have that. It has to be initiated by something such as a video game or something else that generates that. They're not self-moving, is what I'm trying to say. So I think as long as we try to make sure we nurture that side and beef that up and challenge them in those aspects, they're going to be awesome. They're going to be awesome.
It's so funny that you said that, because I literally just released an episode with my childhood friend that I grew up with. That was my neighbor. We met each other when we were little, and we were having a conversation one day, because I was looking around and I was like, I just saw so many things on Facebook about kids, teenagers that are struggling. And a lot of that's because of the pandemic, but I don't think that's everything to do with why some of these kids are having so many mental health issues, just being depressed and being anxiety ridden. And there's all these different things. And I was having this conversation with her about what can we do to help that. And, you know, we had this exact conversation about when we were young, we knew all of our neighbors on our street. We knew you were talking about your grandmother's neighbor that would take you and do things with you. Well, the same thing was true for us when we were little. And I think that with all the technology and maybe some of the fear of who your neighbor might be, you know, we went through the 80s where it was kids were getting taken, and that was a big, huge fear that we all had. I think that we're at a place now where we do have to be really intentional about getting these kids involved, and not just assuming that they don't want to be, because I really think that they do. I just think that
they do.
Yes.
They just don't know that they do.
Right.
That's what I say all the time. They just don't know that they do.
Right. I was watching an episode of Modern Family, and so one of the oldest daughter, I think she lost her phone, and the whole episode was about how she had noticed that the flowers smell good, and like there's all these birds in the sky, and she was like,
she didn't have her phone.
Have y'all ever noticed that these flowers smell really good? And her parents, like, she was so excited. And it was funny, but it's true. My daughter is the same way. I've taken away her phone basically for the end of the school year to finish math. And she's so much more engaged when she'll go outside and play by herself, or she'll go she'll literally go to the neighbors and talk to them and just say, hey, I just wanted to come say hi. She's 10. And so, but I think that we have to encourage that. And especially in our community, especially in our churches, making sure that we're really reaching out to these kids and giving them responsibility to do something. Because I think that's another thing that they're missing.
Yes, yes,
um,
yes. We have to take a responsibility and make sure that that gets done.
mm-hmm. And I saw on Facebook that your church is opening back up for in person.
Yeah. It was Sunday was our first in-person service that we've had since March of last year.
Were y'all so excited?
Oh yes, we were so excited. We were just, you're not supposed to be hugging anybody. Everybody was hugging. It's like we're all gonna have COVID. But we were just so excited to be, back at each other's presence. But it's the fellowship. You just miss the fellowship. You do. You miss people. You are at home. I mean, at first, it was great. Go to church, laying in the bed. You don't even have to get up. You don't have to brush your teeth. You can. But after so long, that can only go for so long. You miss the interaction with the people. You miss, seeing. You miss your church. You miss the pew. You miss the smells of the church. You just miss the church. You miss all of that. So yes, we are more than happy to be back and we're still trying to do it safely though.
Yeah.
With the social distancing and the mask and all that lovely stuff. So,
But
it's good.
It can't be understated, the mental health aspect of just being able to be around other people.
Yes.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how we outsource our insanity, which basically means that we bounce our ideas, everything that goes on in our heads that gets out of our heads when we talk to other people and are face to face with them helps to keep us, and I think that, yeah, you don't really know how much you miss that until you don't have it. And especially for extroverts, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Yes.
So during the pandemic, did you work from home or were you still going into your office?
Well, we were deemed essential.
Mm-hmm.
So we were closed for about 2 months, I think. And then we came back, and then everybody in my office got it except me. And so we closed again and went back home. And then we came back all healthy, and we've been open ever since. So I think probably all in all, we were closed maybe 3 months, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Total. But for the most part, we were here. We didn't, our doors were not open to the public until, I forget when we opened back up. Maybe January.
Do you have a lot of people that come into your office anyway?
Yes.
You do? Oh, okay.
I do. Now we do. Well, we didn't realize how many people we had that were coming. But once you lock the door, you get to see how many people you have that are coming.
Right.
So we would then we took appointment only, and then of course everybody that comes in has to wear a mask. But other than that, we've been making it work. Nothing big, no biggie.
And so during February, during the storm, did y'all have a lot of people that had called with claims?
Oh yes, ma'am. That was horrific.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty much the only one of my staff that did not lose power. So we all had the ability to work from home. So we had computers, laptops at home and all that stuff. So we could work, but you can't work with no power. So that was the biggest issue. We had agents that didn't have power. So when you're supposed to call your agent to file your claim, but you can't get to your agent because he has no power. So we do have an 800 number where you can call and file the claims, but it was really hard to make it through that. But we did, and I know personally, I probably filed some 25 or 30 claims myself.
Wow.
Not to mention what people didn't get me, but that's what we got to do.
I've thought so much about insurance agents because as a real estate agent going through, well, first of all, when that storm happened, I was like, great, we already don't have inventory on homes. Now anybody that was gonna list their house and their pipe just burst, that's gonna be a problem. And then it was like, okay, now materials are so expensive. So now we got all that issue. It's just been one challenge after another. It's just one of those years.
Well, one of the biggest challenges we had was the remediation piece of it. When people had pipes to burst or things or water all over the place, there was nobody to come clean up the water.
Mm.
We have a huge shortage of those companies. And I didn't even think about it, but we really only used, I'd say probably 4 or 5 different companies. But with everybody needing services, you know,
yes,
that was a problem. That was an issue. It just got to the point to where the claims adjusters were telling people, okay, you know, do the best you can. We'll compensate you for whatever you've had to use to clean the mess up. Or if you had to turn your fans on or go to the store and buy a fan and set it up, we'll give you allowance for that, you know. So just trying to make it work the best way possible.
It's so interesting because I just got done interviewing Martin over at Bon Air, and we were talking about CTE and how the career and technical schools that we have at GPISD, and how we now have such a huge pathway for those types of training. And as you were talking about your grandfather and he was working on trucks, I was thinking all the mechanics that we now have that are going and working on helicopters, or auto mechanics. And I started thinking about the jobs that are the technical skills, the career skills, and those things. And you graduated from college and you had a degree that actually meant something, that you could actually get a job. It's not one of these weird, odd, degrees that you pay a bunch of money for and you can't get hired. But I feel like GPISD is putting our kids in a very unique situation, because they're teaching them skills that we need. Because you're hitting on something that's very important. Even as an agent, it's hard for me sometimes to find electricians. It's hard for me to find plumbers. Those are all skills and jobs that you probably need to be an apprentice at for several hours before you can actually do it yourself. And when you're an adult that has a family, it's hard to just go be an apprentice and not get paid. But these kids are graduating with all this stuff. It's really puts
awesome.
It's amazing, and it shines a light on what happens when we run out of people that know how to do those things. And we have to have those people, and we want them to stay here in Grand Prairie.
Yes, gotta have them all day long. We can't function without it.
No,
as a society, we can't.
No. And these kids are graduating with 6-figure incomes, some of them. It's just crazy. And they're employable right away. And, I really want them to get a real estate pathway because they can graduate with a real estate license, or, so.
Yes, I didn't realize how many classes y'all have to take to get a real estate license.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours. And then I'm working on getting my broker's license just so I can have it, because you have to have a certain amount of hours, experience hours, which I have. But I had to get 900 hours for my broker's license. And I was like, well, you should take the pandemic and go ahead and do that now. But it's a lot of hours. But these kids can graduate and be done by the time they're 18. And because you have to wait till you're 18 and take the test and get your agent's license. But, GPISD is such a unique situation for that. Now, when your girls graduated, did they do anything like pathway wise, or where did they graduate from? Which school?
Now, my daughter graduated. Well, both my kids graduated from South Grand Prairie. So she's on the health pathway. So she did internship at Baylor in Irving.
Wow.
When she was at South in her senior year. So yes, she got all of these certifications. She could have graduated and gone to be work in a doctor's office as a medical assistant. She probably could have done phlebotomy. The person, she could have done that, but she wants to take it a little further, so that's why she's continuing. My son was on the theater pathway. It's not really. Son and
daughter. I don't know why I thought that you had sisters. That's where I got that there was more than.
Yeah. Yeah, he was on the theater side, so yeah, they didn't have. It's not a theater quite pathway, but they have lots of theater experiences, and he went all the way to nationals in the competition. So. That was great. South did a great job.
That theater that they have there is pretty amazing. it's a professional level theater, and South, and that's not even fine arts. The Fine Arts Academy. I've never even been inside the Fine Arts Academy, the high school, and I'm sure that's just unreal. But if you haven't been back into any one of the high schools lately, it's unbelievable what these schools look like.
I haven't been in the school since Would probably be February of last year.
Yeah. Well,
would be the last time.
We went to, because I graduated from South in 98, and we went and did our 20-year reunion. They gave us a tour of, because they have a vet tech program. They have they have the trainer program back in the athletics building where they teach kids how to be, athletic trainers. And then the theater they showed us. And I swear we were walking around and we felt so cheated. We were like, this is so not the school that we went to. And that they really have just put so much money into these kids. That nursing program over at Grand Prairie High School is just unreal. And it's great. Yeah, it just speaks so much to what's important, when we're trying to figure out how to get the next generation up and going, so that they can take care of us whenever we get to be a little.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
So I guess being involved, like one of the last questions I'll ask you is, for those people that maybe aren't self-employed, they don't have the flexibility of hours, and maybe they're working like a regular job where they're going in for just certain hours. How do you feel like they can be most involved? If they wanted to get involved in something in Grand Prairie that's a nonprofit or something, how would you suggest they do that?
Check the website or find a person that's a member and just ask them how do they feel about it. Go to some of the meetings, attend some of the functions that they host. A lot of people can't attend meetings. A lot of the meetings are at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. But most of the organizations have evening functions. So try to attend a function and see if you like what the organization is about, if you like the people. There are a ton of nonprofit organizations in Grand Prairie. Mm-hmm. I am sure that if you want to be if you want to be effective at giving back to the community and you want to join, somebody has something that you want to do. I'm sure. Yeah. So that would be my suggestion by and far. Just step out there and go see what they're doing.
Yeah. And
because people can talk a lot. People can talk a lot, but see it. You got to see what they're doing. Mm-hmm. See where they're investing their time and their money. That lets you know the importance of the organization.
Oh, that's such a good point. And, that's one of the things about local nonprofits. When you're giving money to let's say a I don't know, a huge Salvation Army or something that's like a whole national thing, you don't know where all the money is going. But when you have local nonprofits, there's all that stuff is public information. They have to provide certain types of documents, and by the activity that you see in the community, how those groups are spending their time and resources. And I feel like people sometimes can make it harder than it has to be, or maybe get a little intimidated, or think, oh, I have to volunteer my life away just because you go to one meeting. Just go once. You'll meet a bunch of people.
Go and see if you like it, and then decide how much time you have to dedicate. Mm-hmm. They will take whatever time you have.
Just don't go to Rotary, because you'll all make them stay. That's the way and Rotary is fun. It really is. I was there for a couple of years, and I'll be back again. But it's fun. Being involved in doing those kinds of things are a lot of fun.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it depends on what level you want to volunteer and invest your time. It can be as little as once a week doing Meals on Wheels, or it could be as small as helping with GP who, putting together a meal for a month, or one time of the month, or whatever. Or it could be as involved as doing something on a regular basis, or being a president. There are many levels in between. Yeah. You find where you fit in and do what's most comfortable for you.
Yep. We don't all have to be presidents. You don't all have to be on the board of directors and do
we do not at all.
Yeah. Well,
and not to say that it may not be the time for you right now, maybe later on. You never know.
It's funny, once you start to do it, and you get down to that pathway where people know that you're really capable and you're really doing a good job, that's something that you get on this trajectory, and you're before you know it, you're on 4 different boards and you're doing all these things. You're like, I gotta learn to say no occasionally.
I'm a living witness.
Yeah, me too. But Well, I'm gonna link the information to your agency so that if anybody has any insurance needs, that they can know how to contact you. And now your office is on the north side, right? Is it off 161?
Yes, our address is Northwest 11th Street in Grand Prairie, right next to the Albertsons, right there at Carrier and Main.
Did you move?
No.
Oh, I don't know why you were at there's another insurance agency just off of Egyptian, like right there. I don't know why I thought you were at that location, but yeah, that makes sense. You're over.
No. I've been here when I first came to this office. I don't know. Do you remember Bill Bowles?
Mm-hmm.
With Chicago Title? Okay. Yep. He was the owner of the building when I first got here in 2008. I've been in this building since April of 2008. And then after he had his stroke and they decided to sell the building, then I bought the building. So I've been here the whole time. So
you own the building now.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you have any other tenants that are in your building with you?
Yes. There's a medical training school up front. I don't know if you know Chris Brigman with United Realty.
Yes,
he's one of my tenants. I'm almost fully leased. I have one office space left available, and I'm trying to get that leased out, but it just became available this month. So
wow,
it's pretty good.
So you don't have just anything going on. You're just nothing. You're not going. You don't have all kinds of different things. That's awesome.
Multiple streams of income. Hey,
I'm telling you, the more that you diversify all that stuff, it's helpful.
Yes. Yeah. So if you know anybody looking for office space, let me know. I have a 300 square foot space that I need to get leased.
Good to know. Well, thank you so much for taking your time. I really appreciate you talking to me.
Yes, well, I appreciate you asking. It was good talking to you.
Yes, and I'll see you next week, probably. I'm guessing. I was going to go to the meeting yesterday, but then Sandy said it was a board meeting, not a regular meeting.
Oh, yeah. It was board meeting. Yeah. Next week.
Yep. And if anybody wants to join us, we'll be at Rotary. That's main event now, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Tuesdays for lunch. So, but anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Yep. Have a great afternoon.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.